Welcome to the podcast, Restore Yourself, Restore Your Marriage, where it's all about discovering the thoughts that get you in the mood, the thoughts that get you out of the mood, and how creating a deeper connection with yourself creates a deeper connection with your spouse. I'm your coach, Shelly Anderson, coaching you through life, love, and intimacy. This is episode number 118, Sex. What is it really good for?
I can think of a few things.
Yes, we can think of a few things. Some people may find it hard to think of multiple things, or maybe they're just stuck thinking it's only good for one thing and they're not too happy about that. And so we're hoping that in this episode, we can kind of expand our view on some of the benefits of intercourse, of that sexual experience, and really just expand our limited maybe thinking about it.
And we're going to talk about this beyond just the health benefits, the exercise of it.
Right, the burning the calories.
Yeah, I mean, this really is important not only for the things we're going to talk about, but just balance in your life in general. Sexual energy and sexual pleasure and sexual fulfillment, satisfaction, whatever you want to call it, these are all part of a balanced life and well-being of a human. Because this is, whether you agree with this right now in your life or not, or whether you want to admit this or not, this is how we were created. Especially, this is how marriage was intended. So when we're talking about marriage, this is a part of it, whether you like it right now or not. But we're going to talk about the benefits, and hopefully you'll want to take advantage of those.
Yeah. So I thought it would be interesting to start this episode off just a little bit different. And I wanted to talk about an exercise that sometimes I do with my clients. I don't do it with all of them, but definitely there's some that this exercise is super beneficial. And that is to kind of just imagine, if you will, for a minute, that we are living in Harry Potter world, that we all have magical wands, and that we can cast a spell on our spouse.
Ooh.
And that when we do, that the spell is going to create the sexual experience of our dreams.
Okay.
And so obviously it's not just like a one size fits all spell, right? It's going to be for the person who's casting the spell. It's going to be how they envision the most romantic, the best sexual experience with their spouse. And so I have them imagine this, right? That they've cast the spell and that it has actually taken effect. And so what we do then is I ask them a lot of questions about what that looks like in reality and how they would know if that spell took effect. Would they know it first thing in the morning because something was different? Or would they notice it late in the afternoon because something went a little bit not as normally as it did? Or would they notice it later on in the evening? And what are those details that start to present themselves in a new way that makes them know that their spell was effective?
I wonder if the husband could predict what that spell would look like, would be the same as what that spell would look like, right?
I doubt they could predict what their wife is.
I really doubt it, because I think the things that we think are important to our spouses, even if you've been married for a long time, and even if you should know better, we still think things are true that aren't.
Yes. So I just wanted to throw that out so your brain can kind of ponder on that while we're discussing some of the things that my clients have actually given me as some of their responses when I've asked them, okay, like what was included in the spell, right?
This would be a great like newlywed or oldly wed game question.
Oh, yes. Yes. And I think since most of when clients come to me, a lot of times they've already been married for a while. And so this one is a good one. And because they will go for the negative and then they're going to switch it in their minds. Like if the spell worked, this would be different.
Now, I'm going to plug something here because I'm going to guarantee you that those people who have taken our newlywed course, first night, first year, compared to anyone who has not taken it, if you're a newlywed, you're going to be much better at answering this question if you've taken our course than if you haven't. It's going to be night and day as far as how you answer the question, because your knowledge of the other person is going to be so much greater if you have taken our first night, first year newlywed course. And it will also be better if you've taken our marriage enhancement course for anyone that's married.
Yeah, so true. So I just want to, again, bring up some of the answers. This is just a few of, past clients when we've had this discussion and gone through this experience. So when I said, okay, what was different? What was part of your magic spell? This one really I loved because it was like hiking. And I was like, wait a minute. We're talking about the most romantic, intimate experience. And she was like, yes, hiking. And so as we started to have this discussion, more things like this that were not actually totally related to the sexual intercourse part of intimacy, it starts to become very apparent that there are other categories that really contribute to the sexual experience and the romance of it and what we're longing for. And so as we talked about hiking, I was like, well, why would you cast a spell and include hiking as part of your most romantic, the best sexual experience? And so some of her answers were like, well, we would, in the beginning of the hike, we would be talking. And I was like, oh, yes. Okay,
there you go.
Here we go. Now we're getting somewhere. We're having conversations. We're learning more about each other. Maybe we're bantering and telling jokes. And it was also being able to spend time together doing a different activity that she wanted included and led up to her wanting to be intimate.
So far what I'm hearing is, what is sex really good for? It's to get the man motivated to talk to his wife.
Talking is huge. Talking is huge. And I think we underestimate the value of talking.
And I'll just say this about talking, because I think talking and at the beginning of a hike is one thing. Like, hey, what do you normally talk about? And what have you been talking about for the last 10 years or 20 years or 5 years or however long you've been married? What are the things that you normally talk about? Well, I think if you need to feel like you need to cast a spell to get your husband to talk with you the way that you really want to be talked with, not talk to, not to just talk about the weather, but have a real discussion. What are those things that you would want to talk about too?
Yeah.
Right? Not just, hey, we're talking at the beginning of our hike, but what are the things that would really turn on my life if my husband were interested in these things?
Yes. So you're hitting on one of the main points, which is when a lot of my clients discuss this concept of talking, it's that when they're able to have discussions about all kinds of things, then they're more interested in talking about sex or having sex. When there is more of a variety of discussion or, being able to spend time talking does something for a woman where she's like, if my husband's willing to spend time talking about a variety of things, well, perhaps I am more willing to spend time having sex. Yeah. It is very circular.
And that's not just a prostitute John relationship.
No.
When you're talking about talking, you're talking about something that is very intimate in and of itself. Mm-hmm. So it's not like you're like, hey, if you take me shopping, I'll have sex with you.
Right.
You're saying the whole intimate experience, which is holistic.
Yes.
Which includes emotional, spiritual, mental, and physical, and continues to, I guess, require those things, that is something that is much more attractive to a woman, because sex isn't just about the physical.
Right.
Now, all of a sudden, sex, not only does it represent a beautiful thing between husband and wife in and of itself, but it's so beautiful because it also engenders qualities in our relationship, such as the emotional connection that we have, the spiritual connection that we have. And so it doesn't just represent my husband's needs. Now, all of a sudden, it represents all of these other things also.
Yes. Talking is very encompassing. And I think that's why, for most women, especially my clients, they are coming to the idea of intimacy as a very emotional thing. And so being able to have discussions on a variety of topics that totally, feeds into that. And it's so embracing. And I just want to really point this out for the men and the husbands, that I know sometimes when I work with husbands, the concept of talking can seem boring, right? Like, I don't want to just listen to my wife talk.
We have to be motivated by something.
But I really want you guys, I want the men to understand that it's not just talking to just talk.
No.
There's a purpose behind there. There's meaning behind it. And what it is that these talks, having these conversations are a huge part of a woman feeling her own desire to be intimate. So if talking is absent, then we are also eliminating one of the biggest contributors to a woman's emotional desire for sex.
And I'll say this too, because even though men can get to sex without this, let's say that we have a great sex life on the physical side, but we're missing something with our wife still. Because you can be in this situation too, where you have great sex and you're satisfied sexually. Let's just call it satisfied. Okay, yeah, we have sex, whatever, once a week, once a month, whenever it is. I'm okay with that. But my wife still doesn't quite understand me. And my wife is hard on me, and she thinks that I'm a child, and she thinks that I have these problems, and she wishes I was different. And I know that. And I'm going to assume that she doesn't think highly of me because I just feel like I'm in the doghouse all the time.
Yeah.
Yeah, she puts out when I want it. Okay, she does it, she does her duty. I mean, these are settling thoughts.
Right.
But the damage that happens on a man's side when you're not talking is the same.
Yes.
And I don't want to neglect how important it is for a man to feel heard also.
Yeah.
Because again, it's two-sided. When a man is willing to listen to his wife and really listen and really get into conversation deeply about what the reality is that she's living in with children and with what it's like to be married to the husband, right? Like, let's be real about this.
Right.
When you're able to talk about those things, they can go both ways.
Yes.
If I just want my wife to listen to me about how hard work was, and if the only language to me is, okay, well, she's willing to have sex with me, so I'll live with this. That's only going to last so long. And over time, sex is going to become something that you can despise your wife for, because it's like, well, every time I want to express something to her, I'm having a hard day, she just has sex with me. Mm. And even though that's great, from one aspect of my needs, over time, it's not fulfilling all of my needs.
Yeah.
And men don't realize this. And it's hard for them to express this because the way that they want to be heard is by their wife showing interest in them sexually. But let's put that aside for a second and say, when we talk and when my wife really wants to talk about the things that are important to me, that I'm struggling with, that I'm having a hard time with, well, then all of a sudden my intimacy desires grow outside of just the physical also.
Yes.
So all of a sudden now my needs with intimacy are becoming more holistic. And my needs are becoming more beautiful because it's not just about sex, even though sex is going to be, let's say, a cherry on top
Right.
or whatever it is. But that intimacy is important because now we're both hearing each other, and we both have compassion for each other, and we both have empathy for each other, and we both are seeing that person for who they really are and what they're struggling with, instead of just judging and making assumptions that I'm being judged.
Yes.
Anyway,
That was excellent.
there you go.
I love everything that you just said because it's so true. These are the challenges that we face when it comes to intimacy. And that's why I love this exercise so much, is because it brings out things in ways maybe that we haven't quite put it together. And when we are envisioning it and allow our brain to kind of imagine, then we can see some of these finer details where maybe before,
Keep talking.
where maybe before we were just trying to find the words, and we're struggling with it.
And the thing that a husband is always going to assume is that this is what you wish for.
You better put that away.
We have a 3D model of a penis, and we ordered it for some other things that, like, we do some classy sex ed when it comes to our newlywed course. And we ordered this penis so that we could show the different parts, and show the difference between circumcised and non-circumcised. Like, we get pretty scientific, but the one they sent us was gigantic. So I just showed, and if you're watching YouTube, you just saw our 3D model of the penis. And I'm joking that women are, because men think, oh, she just wants me to have a bigger penis, or, we're obsessed with penis size.
Yes.
Which is ridiculous. And I get into that in our sex ed education. And I talk about why that's ridiculous, but we still are, because the world is obsessed with it.
Yes.
So anyway, that was a joke. If you didn't see it and you're just hearing it, that's what she's laughing at.
Yes. Well, just to kind of shed some light on some of the other things that some of my clients have brought up when I ask them to imagine this perfect, intimate experience, it's also things like candlelight, or it's that they watched the sunset together. Again, it's all these other types of activities and things that they get to experience that are outside of just the actual sex itself.
So the other senses.
Yes, including the other senses. Yeah, that's a huge part. And so, like you were saying, with everything that you were talking about, is there are huge emotional connections. And so this is, again, a huge, huge contributor to a woman feeling, and a man, that the whole sexual experience and all of intimacy is being included, and that there aren't all these things missing, or that it could be better, right? It's like when we start to look at it holistically and involve these things, that's when sex starts to feel so much more satisfactory.
Yeah. And again, I'll make the point that your husband may seem like he just wants sex, and he might only think that that's what he wants. But the truth is, as you go down this path of education and learning and understanding yourself and understanding what it means to have a true deep connection and relationship with the holistic intimacy, the man is going to benefit as much as the woman when it comes to creating something beyond just the physical.
Yeah. And I think maybe a good question for the husbands and the men listening to this is, when your wife does want to talk and get into conversations that are not about sex, not about intimacy, but just about life or anything that interests them, is to be able to ask yourself, like, I wonder, and be very curious about how that specific conversation will enhance and contribute to her desire. I think that's such an excellent question. And then to be engaged in that conversation and fully engaged, and to be present in the moment with that genuine wonder and curiosity, because I think that will really help how you are involved in the conversation as you see what transpires afterwards. Not just like, now she's going to be ready to have sex because we just finished this conversation, but just to watch what unfolds naturally as a result. I think that can be a whole different approach to this concept of talking and having conversations, rather than just like, women want to talk and I got to listen.
Well, when we are curious about each other, that's the biggest. I mean, flattery is important. Affirmation is important. And it's more important to some people than others, right? Like, affirmation is more important to me than it is to you.
Yeah.
And I've had to put that desire away over time, because I know that it doesn't really help, even though it's always going to be a need and a temptation I have, is to want to have my actions affirmed. But as I realize that that's not important, the thing that brings me joy isn't just a pat on the back. The thing that brings me joy is the act of doing things that are helpful to other people and not needing to be praised for it. That's a healthy thing.
Yes.
Because that's healthy in all aspects of my life. And I've always said that the person that I care the most about what they think is you. But in all reality, getting to a place where I know that the things that I'm doing are good, whether you say it or not, is a better thing.
That's huge.
And also not caring what you think so much.
Yeah.
Right? Not needing the affirmation. But having said that, when you have a conversation and you're curious about something or many things in your spouse, when the wife is curious about what's going on with the husband and the husband's curious about what's going on with the wife, that curiosity is a form of affirmation.
Yeah.
Because, look, they're interested in me.
Yes.
And that is important.
Yes.
So affirmation in general isn't a bad thing. It just has to be done in the right way. And when you're having a discussion that's two-sided and not just one-sided, right? Like, oh, praise me.
Yeah.
That's one-sided. Having a conversation with each other about what's really important to each other, that's two-sided. So there's affirmation that's happening on both ways.
I love that.
It's not a prideful, give me praise so I can rise above and feel like I'm special. It's different. It's give me interest so that I can know how to be better and you can know how to be better and we can become better together.
Yeah. Ooh, that's sexy.
And that's super sexy.
Yes, it is. That's very sexy. See? Are you guys watching this? Are you listening to this? Conversations are magical. So those were just a few of the things that came up. Obviously, there's a lot that can come up as you envision this spell being cast, but I just wanted to point out
I'm
few.
casting a spell on you right now.
So that you can see that it's not always the obvious things, and that these not so obvious things are actually super important. Now, the next thing is, as you are imagining that the spell has been cast, is to think about how that would look like, all the things that are included, but then think about reality. Mm-hmm. And now we're going to ask 3 questions to help us kind of, again, flesh out those differences. So we could ask ourselves, what's missing? As we think about the spell that was cast and what was included, now we can step back into reality and go, what was missing between those 2 scenarios, right? That's an awesome question, because it gives us that insight of something we can put back into the experience. And the second question is, what was different? And it might seem like the same question, but just asking it sometimes in different ways can get our mind going. And then the third one is, what is needed? As we think about how our intimacy experiences now, what is needed? And it could be that just these more other activities and these other conversations and deeper emotional connections could be exactly what is needed. So moving forward, And going along with the title of this podcast, like, what is sex really good for? We want to just make one reference that we've used, and it's the book, What We Wish We Had Known When We Were Newlyweds by John and Kimberly, by the way, because they do offer several other reasons why intimacy and sex is important, what it's good for. And they give a few, and we've definitely added to this list, but I just wanted to list off some of the things sex is good for besides just sex. So it could be to enhance the relationship. It could be for reproduction. I love this one because it is just one reason for sex. It is not the only reason for sex. Personal fulfillment. Another one is pleasure. Another one is spiritual development. And I really like this one because it can challenge us, right? Because a lot of times if we start thinking like, why didn't Heavenly Father just create us the same? Why can't my husband's desire be the same as mine? It's so much easier.
And one more book reference. I think the name of the book is Signs, Symbols, and Sacraments by Jeffrey R. Holland. That's a wonderful book. I might have gotten the title wrong, but that book gets deeply into the spiritual.
Yeah.
And that is really important to remember.
Yes, and that this is not just about sex, but that there is a spiritual component. And are we bringing that to the table? And have we included it? Have we thought about it, on this much deeper spiritual level? And if we are struggling, this is a great way to challenge the sexual side is by bringing the spirituality back to it.
Yeah.
Another good reason for sex is to relieve stress. It can help us improve our communication skills.
And it can cause all kinds of problems that you have to get through.
That's right.
And talk through.
So part of the process of going through these challenges with intimacy is to say, hey, you know what? This is going to be a struggle, but I can develop communication skills when we discuss things. Okay, like what communication skill do I want to develop?
If you can talk about your intimate life openly, you can talk about anything.
Yes, so true. Another reason it's good is to develop those higher thinking skills, right? Because it's not easy. We've got to question things. We've got to challenge things. We've got to get up into that higher brain and not just throw temper tantrums like a 2-year-old when we don't get our way. And so because this is a more mature topic that is meant for adults, that means our brain is capable of higher thinking. And so this is a great forum and a great arena to say, you know what, I want to develop higher thinking skills. Let's do it when it comes to sex and intimacy.
Stop being a baby.
Yeah.
Stop being a baby and sit your spouse down and be like, let's talk about this, man.
Yeah.
Let's get it out on the table. And look, there's, again, for women in particular right now, Shelley's course, The Intimacy Effect, Intimacy Beyond Sex, that course is on our website, shelley.andersoncoaching.com. That course is unbelievable for anybody, including men, but it's geared toward women, and she's going to be releasing a similar course for men. If you'll take that course and then have that conversation with your husband, let's just talk about it, you're going to be much more comfortable too.
Yeah, so true. Another really good benefit for sex is that you learn cooperation. You learn teamwork. You got to work through some of those things together. It's not just a one-man show. And one of the ones I really liked is that this is one of those things that is a shared experience.
Yeah.
I love this one because when we're single and we're out and we're dating and we're thinking about who we're going to marry and what the intimate experience is going to be like, we're imagining all that from a single's point of view. But then once you're married and this is the time to develop, this part of the relationship, this is one of those things where two individual lives cross over, this is a shared experience. This isn't just like I get my money and you get your money. And obviously there's some, money that is shared, for the family and expenses, but this is an actually shared experience.
Yeah.
It's so different than some of the other aspects of marriage and just some of the things that have to get done. It's between two people and they are coming together.
That's not a pun. Yeah. Did you mean it as a pun or not? But
I always mean it as a pun.
But this is an adventure. In our last podcast, I think I mentioned the word Chautauqua.
Yeah.
Which is a Native American word for journey or adventure. And it's all about appreciating the present moment and going through whatever you're going through. What you're talking about is you're sharing in a journey that is ongoing. So no matter how different your life is, like let's say that you're going through a time in your life when you're traveling a lot, or your wife is taking care of the kids and you're working, or whatever it is. This is the thing that can bring you together and keep you together. So when you come home from traveling, you come home and you're with your wife and you're intimate. It's not just the physical, it's the whole thing.
Yeah.
It's the holistic. What is my relationship like with my wife? And we're learning how to stay connected even when we're apart. This is the ultimate way to stay one with somebody, even when you're an individual.
Yeah, it's so true. Just a few more is that the sexual part of ourselves is a part that is meant to be developed and learned about and explored and enhanced in the marital relationship. And that if we ignore it or neglect it, it does have a negative effect on the other aspects of our lives. It's this ripple out effect. And so when we are actively working on it and trying to improve it, it can have a positive effect on the other aspects of our lives, even with its challenges.
Can I just give a warning from a male's, and this is not an excuse for men at all, but if you're not working on this is the way that the world and the media are geared is to drive couples apart who are married. It's not geared to strengthen marriages.
Right.
And so if you're not working on this yourself, it's kind of like if you're not taking steps forward, you're going to be taking steps backwards. You're not just going to be static.
Yeah, by default.
Yeah, it's like spirituality. You're either working on your spirituality and learning more and striving to be closer to God and repenting and changing when you fall short, which we all do. If you're not at least trying, you're going to be taking more steps backwards than you are forward in your relationship. Now, women don't understand this maybe as much as men do, and men aren't willing to admit this.
What?
If your wife isn't interested in sex, they're either going to suppress it completely.
The men?
Yep. And become asexual, and because they have to. And if they don't do that, then they're going to find other avenues for this.
Yeah, we see this.
And this is one of the reasons why men get involved with pornography. And this is why men get involved with weird sexual habits. A couple of podcasts ago, we talked about, why men don't want to have sex with their wives. And look, there's a lot of reasons why you should assume they don't want to have sex with you before you get to the place where they're having an affair or they're looking at pornography. There's a lot of other reasons why this can happen too. But if you're not interested in working on this side of you, the man is built to think about this a lot more than you are. And it is a lot harder for him to suppress it than it is for you. So take that for whatever it means, and this isn't a threat that men should use against you, right? No. Men should use this as a talking point when you're having a conversation where they say, look, when our sex life isn't healthy, it is very difficult for me because I have temptations all over the place with the media. I have temptations all over the place at work. It's really easy for me to make assumptions about things that aren't even true at all. Like, oh, well, look at so and so in accounting. She always looks at me and smiles. I'm sorry, but no matter how good your man is, over time, that is going to wear on him. And even if he doesn't act on the girl in accounting, he's still wondering if it could be better with somebody else.
Yeah. And I think that going right along with that is that it can throw them into a scarcity mentality, right? We're living out of like, I think it almost makes it worse where, am I going to get it? Are we ever going to have it again? Is she ever going to be interested in me? And you're just looking at it from that scarcity mentality. There's almost like a desperation that comes with it, which is so not healthy for the man, the woman, or the relationship.
And also when it comes to accountability, right? People need to own their own stuff. And our actions are our own. And we need to be accountable for them. But let's not help our spouse make bad decisions.
Yeah.
Let's not help them do that. Let's not just say, well, you've committed to me, and so you need to be loyal to me, and I'm going to control the relationship. Again, there's all kinds of problems with that on every side. And if you have the kind of attitude where it's like, you've talked about this on the podcast before, where when I have shared with you the reality of being a man and how often I think about sex compared to you, when you had that response to me of compassion and almost like a heartbreaking feeling of, oh my gosh, that must be terrible for you.
Yeah.
Like that is something we need to be real about. Let's not just look at this as, oh, well, his temptations are just like my temptations, and his choices are going to be just as easy as it is for me to make these decisions. So if he makes a bad decision, then he is a bad person. No, we're built differently, and we need to at least talk about it. If you're talking about it and you're open to that conversation, and just the fact that you're curious about this side of him, that will give him all that he needs to get past those weird thoughts that he has. Because men have weird ass thoughts. Right?
Yes.
We do. And it's not the same kind of thoughts that women have. We can think about all kinds of weird stuff.
Yes.
And I don't know if it's because of the way our brains are, and some men find it easier to control these thoughts than others. But the reality is that when we're having a bad day, it can go bad really fast.
Yeah, that's true. That's true. Well, there's only a few more here on this list of some of the other really good reasons that we could be involved in sexual activities. Another one is that it gives us the opportunity to really learn problem-solving skills.
Yeah.
This is huge for marital success, problem-solving skills. And I doubt there's, too many couples who are like, hey, we've got everything nailed down when it comes to intimacy. It's a big struggle, and it's often a silent struggle. And so if you're able to approach intimacy and say, yeah, there's some challenges here, and this is an opportunity for me to develop problem-solving skills.
Like,
that's awesome.
Like if you find out your husband is at the ER and he has a butternut squash stuck in his rectum.
Right.
That takes some problem-solving skills.
Yes, problem-solving skills.
That wasn't me, but that's a story we heard from the ER, one of our ER friends. And, weird things happen. And you know what? When it comes to sex, stupid crap happens.
Yeah, that's true.
And what a great opportunity to learn problem-solving skills.
Yes.
Hopefully that one doesn't ever happen to you.
Right. And then the last one is that it's a journey, like you were talking about. We can look at intimacy as a personal journey of self-discovery, self-development, and self-growth in an area that is sometimes challenging and difficult, right? It's that challenge within us where we want to do something that's hard and get through it, even just like one little piece at a time. That feels amazing.
it feels amazing when you do hard things.
Yes, it does. As we wrap things up, we wanted to point out just a few more things. That a lot of times intimacy and sex is maybe 85, 90% of our attitude and our thinking about it.
Yeah.
And then maybe 10 to 15% the skills, right? Just getting through the mechanics of it and what works. And so if we kind of think about those numbers, man, that really changes our approach to intimacy, right? And how we're experiencing it and why it's good. It can be good for all these other reasons, as well as learning the mechanics.
Oh, totally.
And then finally, the last point that we want to make is that there's no reason to sit around and wait for things to get better, right? If we just think like, oh, in time, all of these things are just going to resolve themselves. They don't. A lot of times they get worse.
Yeah.
And so now is the time.
Now is the time.
Now is the time. So don't wait. One of my favorite phrases is don't wait, go create. Go create those things that were in your spell, right? Go create them. Yes, create your reality. Create this shared experience. When we are able to incorporate creativity, this is one of those hidden things that women don't know about themselves, and their husbands usually don't know this either, is that when there's creativity involved in your life, in any aspect, it doesn't have to be about sex, but if we can involve it in intimacy, that is an actual fuel for desire to be intimate.
Excellent.
So we want to involve creativity. That's why I love this phrase, don't wait, go create.
Well, it's interesting when you say it that way, because if there's anything that a married couple does to create happiness, it's building something. It's creating a life together. It's creating what works and what doesn't. And you have somebody there with you finding a path. It's finding a path that is constantly new, where you're creating newness and you're creating opportunity and you're creating ways to overcome obstacles. Like it is the ultimate adventure game.
Yeah.
It is. And there's hard times. And there's times when the music gets all dark and, oh, it's all ominous. And, oh, this is the bad part of the movie, right? In the plot.
Yes.
But then you fight through the darkness and you fight together and you hold hands again. And it's like Marty McFly in Back to the Future, you know, when his parents kiss and all of a sudden he's dying playing the guitar. And then all of a sudden he stands up and he strums that note and it's like everything's good again.
Right.
Right. But that's these movies are built like that. But why not make that your reality? Right. Like that's life. The reason why movies strike chords in us is because that's what life is like. And why not find those moments with your spouse and get excited again and re-energize your life? That's what it's all about. It's awesome.
This is very awesome.
As much as it sucks at times, it's all worth it.
Yes. So stop waiting and start creating.
Word.
Because remember, the more that you restore this type of intimacy with yourself, the more you restore it with your spouse. Thank you so much for listening today, and we hope you will join us again next week.